Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive, 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on the 12th day of September. Let's get her rocking and rolling. We got a lot of stuff to cover. So glad you're with us. And just, if you're in the process of moving around or headed home or just listening there on the web, we're just tickled for you to be there, and we'll try to keep you informed with a lot of stuff. I want to start today with the fact that the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, has opened up an impeachment inquiry into Biden, and that's a big step forward, but not quite as big a step as we thought we might have. I think it's rare for me to do this, but I'm going to play about 3 minutes. You've been out and around, you've been doing your business, you probably didn't catch this when it happened. I think brilliant performance by Speaker McCarthy to lay out all that we know and exactly why he feels we need to have the additional powers that come with an impeachment inquiry declaration. And so just right. Tone is perfect. The facts are perfect. He doesn't overstep his bounds. He doesn't claim to have more than they have, which is the way you keep credibility on a thing like this. Here is Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
The months that we were gone and the weeks, House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer at the Committee on Oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the president and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us.
And that was the end of the statement. And it is a little bit unusual in that he ordered it to start in the committee, and he said, "Look, let's open an impeachment inquiry." But he didn't take it to the full House for a vote because it is thought he doesn't have the votes. And you say, well, why wouldn't you have the votes? Well, I think it's a great question. I mean, believe me, I think that the House Oversight Committee, the Ways and Means Committee, the Judiciary Committee, they're all doing great work. And they are digging in. And now that they have the impeachment inquiry authority, they can perhaps go a bit further than they have already. But it should have gone to the floor for a House vote. And apparently there are some moderate Republicans in purple states who fear that if they vote for an impeachment inquiry, it will somehow come back to haunt them and they will not be reelected. You know, it really is sort of amazing to me that members of Congress will. I'm sure that those moderate members believe it is worthy to have an impeachment inquiry and to vote for it. But they know that if they do that, they will be challenged and there'll be a 30-second or a 60-second ad when the election time comes. So they're covering their butts because they don't want to have to answer that. They feel that in a purple state, any movement toward impeachment will come back to haunt them. And I think, at times you have to do what is right rather than look out for covering your butt. You've got to make sure that you do the right thing rather than do the politically expedient thing. Nonetheless, this gets the process started in a big, big way. Here's a couple of stories on it. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced he is directing a trio of House committees to open an impeachment inquiry. Why it matters, the unilateral vote is an apparent reversal of McCarthy's previous statement that a House vote would be held to launch such a probe. It's an escalation of the House Oversight and Judiciary Committee investigations into the dealings of Biden's son Hunter and, of course, by extension, the President of the United States. It will give Republicans added subpoena power, according to those who know a little bit about this. It's unclear that House Republicans have the 218 votes to impeach Biden, and some Republicans in the House and Senate are on record saying they don't think there's enough evidence to proceed. Well, that's why you do an impeachment inquiry. I mean, there certainly is a lot of smoke here. And as you heard it laid out, I think very effectively by the Speaker, you got to continue to dig. We're not saying it's time for impeachment. We're saying it's time to continue in a more powerful way the investigation. As of now, I don't support an impeachment inquiry, said Representative Don Bacon. Bacon said if an inquiry should be based on evidence of a crime that points directly to President Biden, or if the president doesn't cooperate by providing documents. Both of those things, I think, have happened. I think there is evidence of a crime. And I think that the president and his people and the administration are not cooperating in providing the documents. But he's got a problem on both sides, because on one side, McCarthy's got a thing going with the moderates who don't want this thing to go to impeachment. And then you have people like Matt Gaetz pushing hard, and there are others, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, a whole host of other folks who are pushing very hard to go further. And now Gaetz, as you may have heard in the newscast a moment ago, is saying that he may push for a vote to vacate the chair. I don't think he's got the votes to do that. But nonetheless, this is sort of the tightrope that Speaker McCarthy has to walk. Look, there's no way that you have as much going on here that there's not more to find. We just found out that there are 5,400 emails that ran between then Vice President Biden and his son Hunter Biden, and on accounts where he was using a fake name, a pseudonym. 5,400 emails, and we're trying to get a hold of them, and they're not coming. They're not shaking them loose. There is so much smoke here that there is I think a good and valid reason to go forward to get the documents. Does anybody who has listened to the evidence thus far and heard from the whistleblowers who doesn't think that there was a crime here? I can't imagine that is the case. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, according to the Wall Street Journal, says allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Republicans have been looking into whether the Democrat president played a role in or benefited from Hunter Biden's overseas business affairs. Wall Street Journal reported on how the younger Biden ramped up his foreign business dealings, receiving a discounted stake in a private equity firm in China, consulting arrangements with a Romanian real estate magnate, as his father was the vice president. The White House said that President Biden wasn't involved in his son's business affairs and has done nothing wrong. Well, that's what they started out saying. Then they had to say, well, he didn't know anything about it, but he didn't profit from it, was the later thing. He knows about it because we have all kinds of evidence that suggests he did know about it. I don't understand the reluctance, except that it's a bunch of moderate Republicans covering their backsides because they feel like that it will come back to blow back on them during an election effort. You know what? Sometimes you have to look beyond yourself and your personal needs into the needs. We need to know whether our president is a crook. We need to know whether our president benefited from the business dealings. Explain to me why you wouldn't want to know that when you have an email out there from Hunter Biden to another family member saying, at least you don't have the problem I have of having to give half of everything you make to Pops. What about that bank account that simply says Biden? You know, everybody else has a first and last name, but there's one account out there that simply says Biden. What about that? And we've just scratched the surface here. I think that the speaker has done the best that he can by sending this and giving the committees authority to dig a little deeper, have some additional ways to dig for the information, additional powers, if you will. But it really should be a vote by the entire House, and I'm baffled by why the Republicans in the House would not support the speaker on that, would not support the excellent work of James Comer, of Jim Jordan, and others. They have been digging hard, and they are getting close. And there's enough there that I think you need to go forward. And as outlined by the speaker, I think you need to go forward in a very powerful way. This is not a time for half measures. You either go for it or you don't. And these wimpy moderates in the Republican Party, who are more concerned about their reelection efforts than they are about finding the truth for the American people, need to be called out. We need to bring their names to the forefront. Who are they? Beyond Don Bacon and a few others. I'm mystified by it. It seems to me we've got a very powerful case that's being made here. Now, there's other news with regard to Biden Incorporated, and I'll get into that in just a moment. Right now, 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Something awesome coming to Genesis Diamond next weekend, the 22nd to the 23rd and the 24th. A 3-day designer engagement ring event showcasing the world's top two brands in bridal jewelry, Tacori and Verragio. Tacori from California, Verragio from New York, both flying in their entire lines, including all new rings for this special event. You can explore hundreds of exquisite American-made designer rings. Plus, Genesis will have special incentives, zero-interest financing available, and up to $5,000 in instant saving. In addition, Genesis has an expanded selection of GIA-certified diamonds for this 3-day event. All shapes, all sizes, rock-bottom prices. This is the best of the best. Every Tacori ring handcrafted by master artisans with exceptional quality. Every Verragio ring made by hand with unmatched attention to detail. These are brands other jewelers only wish they could offer, but at Genesis they have the entire Tacori and Verragio collections, and they'll all be on display next weekend. Don't miss the bridal jewelry event of the year. It is September 22nd through the 24th. Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills in Cool Springs.
House Republicans proceeding with an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, and a transit center coming to Nashville. That and more. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
324. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7, and I am your Farb. I'm your friend and radio buddy. I'm Brian Wilson. I'm glad that you're with us today. We got Mac Morey there in the newsroom. We got Chris Weber in the control room pushing all the blinky buttons, and we are moving right along. We talked earlier about how the Speaker has ordered that there be an impeachment inquiry on the committee level, but did not take a vote in the House. He makes a very powerful case, and here are some other reasons why we need to have, a full House vote, and everybody needs to be on board with this. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer digging in on questions about President Biden's policies and actions toward Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin while he was vice president, and his son Hunter Biden was on the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma. Comer has sent a letter to Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Tuesday that builds on allegations that have circled for years in Republican circles over whether Biden public pressure to fire Shokin was related to his son's work. I think there's a pretty good case that it was. I mean, he did something that benefited Burisma while his son sat on the board, and even threatened to withhold $1 million. You've heard it. I mean, I'm not going to play it again, but you've heard it so many times. Withhold $1 million in loan guarantees to the Ukrainians until they fired this guy who was hassling, from Hunter Biden's perspective, Burisma. So much of what Comer seeks falls into territory covered by prior congressional investigations. The committee seeks information regarding the State Department's perception of the Ukrainian Office of the Prosecutor General. In other words, did the Obama administration and their State Department at the time, did they have an opinion about Shokin? Was this in keeping with the policies of the Obama administration, or was this an aberration? And how did they come to that opinion? What kind of emails went back and forth before that decision was made, if any? Number two, GOP investigates Hunter Biden lawyers and their alleged brazen intimidation of IRS whistleblowers. 3 House chairmen asked the Department of Justice Tuesday for any communication from Hunter Biden's attorneys about punishing a pair of Internal Revenue Service criminal investigations for speaking and reaching out to Congress. It was Jordan and Comer and Jason Smith, who's on the Ways and Means Committee, asked Attorney General Merrick Garland in a letter obtained by the Washington Examiner to provide any communication to them that the department had received from Biden's lawyers advocating for the investigation or prosecution of IRS agents Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler. Hunter Biden's legal team is engaged in a brazen effort to intimidate and harass the brave Internal Revenue Service whistleblowers who exposed numerous apparent irregularities in the department's investigation of Hunter Biden. They referenced a report by the New York Times, which the outlet said it had reviewed more than 200 pages of confidential correspondence between Special Counsel David Weiss and Biden's lawyers. Based on that correspondence, the outlet found that the Biden lawyers had contended to the Justice Department that by disclosing details about the investigation to Congress, the IRS whistleblowers broke the law and should be prosecuted. No. They are whistleblowers with protection, brave individuals. I'm telling you, Hunter Biden's got a bulldog of an attorney, not a sweet French bulldog like I have. I'm talking about a mean old bulldog. Abby Lowell. I mean, he's not to be laughed at. He's a serious lawyer. Any Democrat that gets in trouble would do well to have Abby Lowell as his attorney. But now he's throwing out everything he possibly can in a very aggressive way, and now going after whistleblowers who brought this whole thing to our attention in the first place. I want to know more about that as well. Behind the scenes, a former CIA FBI official who has become a top target for Republicans in the Hunter Biden investigation met with the House Judiciary Committee today. Timothy Thibault who worked as a special assistant agent in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, was seen entering the committee's main meeting room at about 10 a.m., accompanied by 2 others. They did not take any questions. It comes after the House Republicans sent the former FBI official numerous letters while they were in the minority, asking him to voluntarily appear for an interview with the committee, but they were met by pushback from Thibault's legal counsel. What I suspect here is that he's been granted immunity so that he can get whatever information they have out of him. He's not the target, but he certainly has information that could be helpful. I bet you that the Hunter Biden people puckered when they heard about this. Committee Republicans have said they're investigating allegations made by the whistleblowers that Thibault worked to shut down a line of inquiry into Hunter Biden while he worked at the FBI, and that he pushed to inflate the number of cases of domestic violent extremism the FBI was handling. The committee comes against the backdrop of the House Speaker announcing that he has ordered an impeachment inquiry. And then finally, President Joe Biden said he was has said that he apparently was plunged into sadness and frustration because of the breakdown of a plea deal between his son, Hunter Biden, and the Justice Department. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Too bad. 3:30, Super Talk 99.7.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 76 degrees in Nashville with a chance for thunderstorms the rest of the day. And the rest of the week looking cooler and sunnier. Traffic and weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. House Republicans will proceed with an impeachment inquiry into President Biden focused on Hunter Biden's business dealings, and they've yet to show any concrete evidence, though Joe Biden did directly benefit. Here's Steve Portnoy.
It's a directive from a House Speaker under increasing pressure from his right flank.
I do not make this decision lightly.
Kevin McCarthy's ordering House committees to dig deeper into the business dealings of the president's son. He claims Republicans have already uncovered allegations of abuse of power.
These allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption.
The White House says Republicans have turned up no evidence of wrongdoing. Biden aides note McCarthy has flip-flopped on a plan to have House members vote to take this step.
Transit here in Nashville. News 2 reports that a transit center is on its way to Antioch, and today a $5 million grant came in from the Federal Transit Administration Buses and Bus Facilities Competitive Program. The transit center will be located on the southern end of WeGo's Route 55. There will be between 6 and 8 bus bays with a climate-controlled waiting area, and this grant brings the funding total about $17.5 million so far. And the death toll from Friday's catastrophic earthquake in Morocco now rising with nearly 3,000 dead. Rescuers are still struggling to reach more remote areas in the Atlas Mountains to find survivors and provide relief. United States teams are in Morocco, ready to help the recovery. Here's Tom Sufi-Burridge.
USAID and American NGOs are waiting for a green light from the Moroccan government before they can deploy into these mountainous areas where the devastation is widespread in village after village, in town after town, across this whole mountain range. But in the more remote areas that are much, much harder to reach by road, we've seen the helicopters going in. The hope is that they could still find survivors.
And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Stinky, stinky, stinky. That's what it was like, likely, if the last time you were at an auto repair shop. Smelly, greasy, rags laying around, a countertop you wouldn't dare touch. Another thing that stinks is the repair shops that keep your car forever. They're not honest, and they don't call you back when they say they will. Was that your last experience at a vehicle repair shop? Well, let me tell you about Eurofix. Eurofix takes the stink out of European auto repair. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. Not high-pressure sales taxes. At Eurofix, you will get a 3-year nationwide warranty. You'll get a free loaner car with every repair appointment, and you'll never pay dealer prices. Eurofix in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now the new facility in Mount Juliet, right across from the Dairy Queen. Call 844-EUROFIX. That's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. And tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to The Drive. Let's get you home safely and, give you something to talk about when you get there, all right? It's not often that I go to this story because, I think that, but I think there are legitimate questions about the Kennedy assassination. All these years later, I think there are some legitimate questions. And now comes this story, which is now starting to pick up a little steam, which is calling into question whether or not Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Now, I know, everybody says, Wilson, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, listen to the story and then make your judgment, okay? A former Secret Service agent who witnessed the assassination of John F. Kennedy has broken his silence about the tragic event and is now casting doubt on findings from the Warren Commission that investigated the late president's death. Paul Landis, who admitted he long believed Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone when he killed Kennedy, said he's beginning to wonder if additional shooters may have been involved. I'm beginning to doubt myself. Now I begin to wonder. Landis said his newfound skepticism results from discrepancies between the Warren Commission and his own experiences that day that Kennedy was shot and killed while riding in a Lincoln Continental convertible through Dallas, Texas. Can you believe that there was a time when presidents would drive through in motorcades in an open convertible? But that's the way it was at the time. At the time of the Kennedy assassination, Landis was in a car following Kennedy. He heard several gunshots ring out. Several elements of Landis's recent account of that day in Dealey Plaza contradict his official statement that just after the shooting, while he stressed that he never believed in conspiracy theories, he was adamant to tell what he saw and did. The Warren Commission, following an investigation, found no evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald or Jack Ruby were part of a conspiracy, domestic or foreign, to kill the president. They stated at the time that one bullet that struck Kennedy passed through him and then collided with then Texas Governor John Connally. The bullet allegedly hit his back, his thigh, his chest, and his wrist. Critics of the commission's findings, by the way, this finding came from Senator Arlen Specter when he was on the commission. And it was called the magic bullet theory because a lot of people said it couldn't have possibly done the things that it did. Their conclusion was based on a bullet found on a stretcher Connally was placed on as he was transported around the Parkland Memorial Hospital following the attack. However, listen to this. Landis told the New York Times that he initially discovered the bullet found on the stretcher. He recalled that the bullet was lodged in the limousine seat behind where Kennedy was seated after the president was brought into the hospital. It was a piece of evidence, and I realized it right away, very important, and I didn't want it to disappear or get lost. So I said to myself, Paul, you've got to make a decision, and I grabbed it. To stop souvenir hunters, Landis grabbed the bullet, entered the hospital, and placed it on Kennedy's stretcher. He had hoped the evidence would help doctors determine what happened. He surmised that the stretchers must have been pushed together at one point, and the bullet fell near Connally. Landis speculates the bullet had lost velocity in Kennedy's back and was burrowed in the limousine seat. He had always thought that Oswald acted alone, but now he is unsure and will release his memoir, The Final Witness, a Kennedy Secret Service agent breaks his silence after 60 years. Over the past several years, Landis has told his story to prominent figures such as former Secret Service Director Louis C. Merletti and Cleveland Layer James Robinault. If what he says is true, which I tend to believe, it's likely to reopen the question of a second shooter, if not even more, said Robinault. If the bullet, which we now know as the magic or pristine bullet, stopped in President Kennedy's back, it means that the central thesis of the Warren report, the single bullet theory, is wrong. How about them apples, huh? I have walked Dealey Plaza. I've gone to the grassy knoll. I took my daughter there, who, by the way, this I think was the one significant anniversary. I think maybe in the 50th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination, and they learned about it in school. And I took my daughter there, and I was fascinated how my young daughter, who was just a teenager at the time, was fascinated, wanted to see Dealey Plaza, wanted to walk and look at the grassy knoll after everything they'd learned in class. I thought that was interesting. But we went there and we looked. It's fascinating. One of the things that they found is that they never found a bullet because they know how many shots there were. And they never found one particular bullet. And they looked for it and they looked for it and they looked for it. And it was years later that they found a picture of a traffic light under which the limo passed, and there was a hole in it. In other words, one of the bullets apparently hit the traffic light and then shattered, but enough to make a hole in part of the plate surrounding the traffic light. I thought that was fascinating, something that we learned many, many, many years. So I don't think we know it all. And I do think that there are legitimate questions to be raised. I mean, I asked Senator Specter one time off the record. I was at a dinner and he stopped by our table and we got into the question, and somehow I was able to weasel the single bullet theory into the conversation. And he just grinned. He said, I know I get a lot of grief for it, but I believe it to this day. But a lot of people have looked at the single bullet theory and said, it doesn't really hold up. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. From thehill.com, Landis, same story. After decades of trying to erase that day from his memory, he said that if his recollections of that day are correct, the so-called magic bullet theory may be debunked. Put forward by the Warren Commission, report in the year after the Kennedy assassination, the commission concluded that one of the bullets fired at Kennedy's limousine struck not only the president, but also at Governor John B. Connally in multiple places. Investigators came up with the magic bullet or single bullet theory in part due to finding the bullet on the stretcher of Connally at Parkland Memorial Hospital. But Landis, who is now 88 years old, told the newspaper that his theory does not match what he saw in 1963, November 22nd, 1963, and said, in fact, he was the one to find the bullet. He said he found it in the limousine where Kennedy was sitting. There was nobody there to secure the scene, and that was a big, big bother to me. All the agents there were focused on the president. This was all going on so quickly, and I was afraid it was a piece of evidence that I realized right away very important, and I didn't want it to disappear, so Paul grabbed that bullet. Landis said that he believed the bullet he found hit Kennedy in the back, but not deeply, which resulted in the bullet coming out before the president was removed from the limo. Wow, how is it we don't have not had this story until now? By the way, I was just thinking the other day, we were talking about 9/11 and where you were on 9/11. Well, there's a great story for those of us who are a little older about where were you the day that President Kennedy was assassinated. Now, Chris, that was before your time, right?
Well before, yes.
Yeah, and I know it was before Max.
Well before.
Well before. But I was in the second grade when it happened. And you would think that you would want to shelter. Today, we'd probably want to shelter kids from that kind of news initially. But I was in the second grade. I remember Miss Kephardt's class. And we were just sitting there doing our work. And all of a sudden, the same speaker where they did school announcements just started playing the radio. And it was the CBS radio network reporting, and we didn't understand because they came in just sort of out of nowhere, and there was no setup. Nobody warned us what was happening. It just started blaring throughout the school, and the teachers were sort of baffled as to what was going on. They all walked out in the hallway, and the principal came down the hallway, Mr. Pratt. I can't believe I remember his name, and said, you know what? There's something going on in Dallas. Somebody took a shot at the president. It may be an assassination attempt. One way or the other, this is history, and the kids need to be aware of it. They need to be, brought up to speed on it. And so we listened for the rest of the afternoon until we got the news. I mean, it wasn't known for a while whether he had died or not. But I do remember when they finally announced it. And the standard was on radio was that that if you got the confirmation that a president had died or had been killed, then they had a whole protocol sheet, and the first thing you did was stop and play the national anthem. And so I remember very vividly them playing the national anthem. And, you know, by the time we got home at the end of the day, we all finally got to see on TV what had been going on that we'd been hearing on the radio that day. What a day. I'll never forget it as long as I live. The day that we learned about the Kennedy assassination, the day that happened, November 22nd, 1963, second grade, Miss Kephardt's class.
That is very interesting because you're exactly right. They would never do that today. At least I don't think they would anymore. And
I'm glad that he did. I'm glad that Mr. Pratt made that decision because I felt like it was information, you know, I mean, I look back on it now. I was okay with learning about it. It was sad news. It was tragic news, but it was, as you know, as things go, about a historic moment in American history as you can have. And you know, by the time I got home, you know, to see the TV, I only lived a block away from the school. You know, I was able to sort of then understand more about what had happened. But I'm so glad that he did that. And it was just as a second grader, it was just like a lot to comprehend. But I'm so glad that I have that memory, and that we got to listen that day as reporters were doing their best to try to confirm. I think Dan Rather actually was the first person to report that Kennedy had died of his wounds. And so, look, I'm all about getting the answers. The Warren Commission, there are flaws in that report. And I believe this guy. He's 88 years old. I don't know what he has to gain by doing this now. If he's been holding on to this, I don't know why he's been holding on to it. But how did the Warren Commission not talk to this guy? That's what I want to know. Or if they did, how did he not tell them? Well, anyway, keep an eye on this story. I think it's going to sort of revive itself, and we're going to start hearing more and more and more about how the magic bullet theory really isn't exactly how it all went down. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life, when somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Indictments handed down to former Memphis officers in the death of Tyree Nichols. Crime in Tennessee. The United States warning North Korea to not give Russia weapons or face consequences. And Apple has its latest product hitting the markets soon. Those stories and more coming up at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, let's look at economic and market news. The oil is at $92 a barrel for Brent crude and just under $90 for West Texas Intermediate. And the markets closed out today down. The Dow Jones Industrial down 17, the S&P down 25, the NASDAQ down 144. For more on our economic news of the day, we turn to John Maxon from Beacon Capital Management. Hello, John.
Hey, Brian, how are you? Yeah, the market was down today, pretty much equivalent to what it was up yesterday. Really, this week's about inflation, and tomorrow's a key report. The market's going to digest the Consumer Price Index, which is expected to be up from 3.2% last month to 3.6%. And additionally, on Thursday, the Producer Price Index. And one of the things you talked about is what's really increasing these is the price of energy, which literally on Tuesday hit a yearly high. So the Fed's not going to like that relative to inflation. It's going to be closely watched because the Fed's going to meet next week, and a lot of the decision to raise rates or not is going to be data dependent. So if those reports go up, we could in fact see a rate increase. So it's something to watch really, really closely.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that, John Max. And learn more about all the things they can do for you at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 58 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.401, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 75 degrees and the chance for thunderstorms and showers the whole rest of today into this evening. And then a dry, sunny week ahead. Complete weather and traffic in 5 minutes. 5 former police officers now face federal civil rights charges in the death of Tyree Nichols. Aaron Katursky.
The January beating death of Tyree Nichols after a traffic stop in Memphis strengthened nationwide calls for police reform and led to the deactivation of the Memphis Police Department's Scorpion Unit, credited with crime suppression but feared for its aggressive, even violent tactics. The federal indictment charges each of the officers with deprivation of rights under the color of law through excessive force and through deliberate indifference. The same 5 officers have pleaded not guilty to state charges of second-degree murder.
Right now in Tennessee, a father in Williamson County has been sentenced to a month in jail and 2 years of probation after taking inappropriate photos of his former sister-in-law. Kate McClinton says that she wants Will Cotton on the sex offender registry. McClinton claimed in court that Cotton would take pictures of her doing chores, like opening the fridge or even putting kids in the car. Cotton was found guilty in Florida of video voyeurism and was sentenced to 5 years of probation. His record cannot be expunged. And the United States now warning North Korea there will be consequences if it makes an arms deal with Russia. Andy Field with the latest from the nation's capital.
The United States and other allies already have crippling sanctions on Russia and North Korea. The Pentagon warning of more to come if Kim Jong-un provides weapons to President Putin.
We would call on North Korea to meet its previous stated public commitments not to supply weapons to Russia.
Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Patrick Ryder saying the U.S. military is watching North Korea's next move.
And crime here in Tennessee, Fox 17 reports that a man was arrested downtown yesterday and was accused of having over 130 counterfeit fentanyl pills. Gregory Richardson was seen near 3rd Avenue South sitting on someone else's property, was taken into custody. That's when they found the pills that were being held inside of a dip can. Richardson claimed he only used crack and only took pills from the pharmacy. Richardson was charged with possession with intent to sell a controlled substance. And Apple, they're launching their latest iPhone amid a contracting smartphone market. Mike Dubusky.
The iPhone 15 lineup gets an updated design, faster processors, and a new charging port, which means, yes, you'll have to buy a new cable if you're an existing iPhone customer. The 15 arrives amid strong sales for Apple. The iPhone now accounts for more than half of smartphone sales in the U.S., up about 10% from 2018, but the overall smartphone market is contracting. Counterpoint Research reports global smartphone shipments are set to decline 6% this year.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7, second hour of the drive. We're going to drive you home. We're going to drive home a few salient points. I'm going to drive the liberals just a little guano crazy. That's the goal each and every day here on The Drive. Thank you for being a part of what we do, and thank you for supporting this program and our sponsors. We greatly appreciate that. Before I move on to all the stuff I need to cover in the next hour, I wanted to have Mac Morey. Hello, Mac. Mac forgot we were going to do this. Earth to Mac. Are you there?
Hello.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, before I move on, Aaron Rodgers. What a tragedy, huh?
Man, that's so sad. 2 plays in. How much hype have we gotten? The show Hard Knocks covers the team all off season. We get all of these tidbits. He's in fantastic shape. He chose the New York Jets. They haven't been to the playoffs in 12 years. It's the longest drought in league history. Everyone's hyped. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They have the weapons. They've spent money in the offensive line. We're 2 plays in. He runs out with the American flag. Everyone's hype. It's old school football. And then his Achilles pops. And it's done.
And he's done for the season and maybe career. What do you think?
I mean, he's 39 years old. Yeah. He mulled retirement before. I mean,
yeah, I'd say he's probably done. And you know, it's interesting. I just saw this, and I don't know if Mac, if you've seen this or not, but apparently some guy on Twitter, like a couple hours before the game last night, actually predicted this was going to happen.
I did.
He tweeted. It's a guy named David Zaslav. He tweeted, Aaron Rodgers is going to tear his Achilles on a rain-drenched MetLife turf in 2.5 hours. He was off on the timing a bit, but he predicted exactly what was going to happen.
Yeah, was it the rain or a lack of conditioning? Which do you think it was?
It's probably a combination of many things.
Yeah,
I think it's that turf. There's a bunch of articles out right now about MetLife and that turf and how it's kind of just a death trap of a stadium. And I think the NFL, they're changing all of their fields in 2026 for the World Cup and going to natural grass. Forget that. You've got players right now with career-altering injuries happening every season because of your fields. You have the money. You need to fix it.
Yep. Well, that's a really sad thing. And, for Aaron Rodgers, and a unique character and a unique, personality on the football stage.
Yeah.
And just the other day, now he can spend more time pursuing his other interests and talking about UFOs like he did the other day. Yeah. By the way, while I got you here, we have a friend who has come by and been on our program. We like to think that Nate Bargatze, the comedian, is a good friend of this program, and he's hilarious.
So funny.
I mean, I got to see his concert here at Bridgestone Arena, which was a sellout, right? Remember that? Completely broke the attendance record. Morgan Wallen had held the record at 19,292, and Nate Bargatze broke it at 19,365. In fact, it was a complete sellout.
All right.
Well, listen to this. Apparently, he's doing a golf tournament, and he's joking around, and they give him a microphone, and he talked about how after that night, he decided he didn't want anybody else to ever break his record. So he and some friends, I guess they got a wrench and they removed one seat from Bridgestone Arena, and it now sits in his home.
I love that.
And he
is
says,
awesome.
"You can, as long as they don't put another seat back in there, nobody will ever break my record
Never
because
touch
we're
it.
going to be one seat short." So, I mean, number one, does Bridgestone Arena know that Nate Bargatze stole this? Or did they turn their and laugh about it and allow it to happen? But I'm telling you, he stole a seat from Bridgestone Arena, which is better than I did because I went to Ryman Auditorium and broke one of the pews.
Yeah, that's right. You didn't
Plopped
even get a
down on that-
souvenir for it.
Yeah, I plopped down on one of those pews up front and it cracked. And so the whole rest of the concert, I was just hoping that it didn't completely, collapse and
Give way.
Give way. I sat very gingerly for the rest of the program.
And with the acoustics in that place, the whole place would have heard it crack.
Oh, yeah,
That's for
everybody
sure.
would have heard it. And but anyway, I lived. I mean, I actually acknowledged it, and I said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I didn't do anything except sit my at that time 330-pound frame down in the chair." By the way, do you know how much I weigh now?
I've heard
260 pounds.
Wow,
Man,
way to go!
it's a lot of LBs.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's all because of some good. I had some medical challenges this summer, as I have discussed. I had just a horrific case of shingles, and in the process of looking at the shingles, they realized that I had an irregular heartbeat, and we've been working on those two things, and not quite through with all of it, but through the use of some doctors and some really well-prescribed medications, I have lost a ton of weight. I mean, I've lost 10 pounds. It went from a 52-inch waist to a 42-inch waist.
Wow.
Dang.
Wow, that's just impressive. I mean, that's, you
Incredible,
think, you know.
And people have asked me how you feeling. I'm telling you, I feel great. I still have a few little things that I'm pushing through, but compared to where I was, folks, you have no idea. And Chris, I can back me up on this. You have no idea how rough it was for me this summer. I think I only missed about 2 or 3 days through all of that, and that included, a day that I spent in the hospital having a catheter run into my heart. So I think I missed 3 days, but there were days when I just didn't have it in me, and somehow was able to get through 4 hours of radio. But for those who have asked, thank you so much for asking and caring. But I am feeling 1,000% better, and I'm down 60 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. Something else. Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, anyway, thank you for that. I just there were several things I wanted to talk about. I think we need to talk to Nate.
Yeah, we need to get him on to talk about
this
that.
crime that he has committed against Bridgestone Arena. Now, his dad listens, and I think his dad knows how to reach us. And if his dad is listening, find your son and have him call us, because we got to talk about this chair that he stole from Bridgestone Arena. I mean, you got to know that Bridgestone Arena knows that one of their chairs is missing. And I think, did they look the other way? Or are they really trying to figure out, where did that chair go?
The maintenance is being called down to the, main office. Hey, what's going on, guys?
And did you replace it? Because if you replaced it, then it's potentially possible that somebody can at least tie his record.
That's true.
Got a guy who paid for the ticket. He's standing on his whole show. Where's my seat, man? What the heck?
You had to stand the whole show.
That's unbelievable. What a funny guy. What a nice fellow, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, is that a felony? What would be the value of that chair? Apparently the evidence is easy to find because it's at his home.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to cause any problems for our friend Nate Bargatze, but
maybe too late for that. I don't.
Well,
I'm sure he got permission to remove that seat.
It's in the Tennessean. That's where I got it. So, it's like the word was out. I'm not breaking a story here.
I just looked up what the crime of stealing a stadium chair, and the only story that comes up is 2018. An Eagles fan stole a stadium chair, and they just fined him. They just charged him $100, $125.
Well, that was in Philly.
Yeah,
$125.
That was probably the least egregious thing that happened that day.
Yeah, that's true.
The fans in Philly, they boo Santa Claus.
Exactly.
Worst fans ever. Well, okay. I'll get into, but very serious. I feel like we've been goofing around to get into serious stories for just a moment or two, except for this one, perhaps. And you dismissed Matt.
Yeah, he's done
some of this stuff. Yeah, okay. But thank you. Mac knows so much about sports.
He does.
And I'll be honest, he's really good. He really, that assessment you gave us was, as good as any I've ever heard anywhere. And I love to bring you in because I will admit to you, that's a weak spot for me. I know a little bit about sports, but not to the level you do. And so I love tapping into your knowledge. Really, honestly, it's a real asset to have you on this program for many reasons, but that's certainly one of them. All right, former Tennessee Education Commissioner Penny Schwinn. According to the Tennessee Star, this is their headline. I don't disagree with it. Former Tennessee Education Commissioner Penny Schwinn fails upward. I think she was not a very effective Secretary of Education or Education Commissioner. I never understood, what everybody else saw in her, and I don't think that, although she did reign over some difficult times, I don't think that she made the right moves to improve education to a great deal in the state of Tennessee. But she has moved on. Listen to this. She gets a $367,000 per year job at the University of Florida. She will join the school in a newly created position as vice president for pre-K through 12 and the pre-bachelor's programs. According to an email from Cynthia Roldan Hernandez, University of Florida's Director of Strategic Communications, this work will earn Schwinn an annual salary of $367,500, making her the second highest paid University of Florida vice president. She started her employment with the university on June 15th, but her hiring wasn't made public until this week when Ben Sass, the university president, emailed staff following a press notice. She will explore strategic opportunities for the University of Florida to develop and expand opportunities in the PK to 12th grade space areas, in areas like space, aeronautics, pre-apprenticeship programs, develop possible master class and explore high and hybrid opportunities for high school students. She ran as Tennessee Commissioner of Education from 2019 to 2023. And according to the take by the Tennessee Star, I do not disagree with it, her tenure was controversial. So there, I mean, again, I suppose congratulations to Penny Schwinn, but it is, I must say, a little surprising to see somebody succeed and in such a tremendous way after not really succeeding here in the state of Tennessee, in my it's my personal and humble opinion. So there is that. Now, in a moment, I'll give you some other Tennessee news. It's 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. Let's talk about United Structural Systems. If you got waterproofing, you got foundation issues in your house, you need the folks at United Structural Systems to help you out. And I'm telling you, it's pretty easy. You just call this number, 615-488-7855. They'll come out. They'll take a look at what's going on. They'll give you their best assessment. And then if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job's done, and you are completely satisfied. They have a great reputation. Listen to this one. I just want to say first off to the crew, hats off for their hard, excellent work. I was very pleased with the work they did. They did not leave any mess to be cleaned. Actually, you could not even tell they had been there. It's good, hard workers that make me love USS, and I tell everyone about your excellent customer service and work. Thank you for the respect, and your guys showed me, and it was like a breath of fresh air. That was Gloria earlier this year talking about her experience with USS. USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at ussTN.com, or call this number, 615-488-7855.
Federal indictments against former Memphis officers that were involved in the death of Tyre Nichols. A new COVID vaccine rollout expected to come soon. And today's money news, those stories and more 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
24 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. And Tennessee, we got to do better. According to WKRN, Metro Police have confirmed that one of the people shot in an apparent road rage shooting Friday night on the interstate was a Davidson County judge. Wow. Officials said Davidson County Judge Aisha Miles was hit by broken glass when gunfire hit her car. Another passenger, her friend, was shot in the hand and leg, both of their injuries considered non-life threatening. They say it was an incident of road rage. Police continue searching for the shooter, and they continue to investigate what they say are a growing number of road rage incidents. Tennessee ranks among the top states, this is sad, for road rage shootings, with numbers steadily increasing. The problem isn't just in Middle Tennessee. According to New Everytown Research and Policy Report, road rage shootings are continuing to surge nationwide. Reports show growth over a 4-year period. 70 people killed, 176 wounded in these incidents in 2018. Numbers up dramatically as we get to 2022. I think it's a very real issue for Tennesseans, and I think it comes down to drivers' perceptions and their attitudes. So what do you do if you encounter an aggressive driver out on the roadways? I'll tell you what I do. I back off. I mean, it is not worth it to get into an escalating, just cede to the other guy or the other person. Once you identify that another driver is exhibiting road rage behavior, tailgating, weaving in and out of traffic, making gestures or more, your best bet is to take steps to diffuse the situation. The best thing you can do as a driver is to give them space on the roadway. If they're behind you, go ahead and slow down. Let them pass. Let them go on. Don't react. Don't engage. Don't make eye contact. That's very important. Definitely don't make any gestures back to the other driver. Cooper said it's important to use your turn signals, allow others to merge, use your high beams sparingly. That's a good one. Also, do not engage, taunt, or take aggressive retaliatory measures, as this can escalate the issue. With the steady increase in road rage shootings, Cooper said, making these safe decisions can be paramount in getting to your destination safely. I mean, sometimes, you accidentally, it's just happened to me. You don't mean to. It's certainly not your intent, but you accidentally cut somebody off in traffic. It can happen. You two people merging into the same lane. That can happen, and it can really appear that you are acting in an aggressive way when you didn't mean anything by it. And I've had people, come up and make a gesture and I just slow down, let them pass. If they're in that big a hurry, they're going to go on their way and not engage. But when in Tennessee, let's be honest about it. Just about every person on the roadway has a gun in their car. Apparently, I know I do. It's locked up, but it's there. So why not? Why would you want to exacerbate a situation by engaging with someone? Sure, I know things happen, and sure, tempers flare, but we have to be the bigger person. You have to be the bigger person. If there's somebody out there who's just having a horrible day and you set them off, you never know exactly how it's going to end. The best thing you can do is de-escalate the situation, slow down, give the person room, or just, one time somebody got up in my grill about it, and I just turned to him and said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just sort of mouth, I'm very sorry. And that seemed to be like, I didn't mean to do it. And that seems to help sometimes. But I'm telling
it's more difficult, though, I think, for a lot of people when it's the other person that was doing whatever it was that caused the issue, and then it just enrages you, and you don't want to be the person to initiate the road rage incidents either, even though it's difficult, because I get upset almost daily at some of the people that I encounter on the roadways. But you just kind of have to say, all right, you're an idiot. Now go about your day and get away from me.
You know, on my daily commute around the pool and into the garage, I sometimes get irritated with the dog, but that's about it.
Or an errant wasp, maybe.
Oh, yeah, we have some of those for sure, but I don't know. Just take it, look, honestly, within the sound of my voice right now, a lot of people on the roadway. They're all driving 80 miles an hour on the interstate. And the roads are packed, and you're tired, and you want to get home, and sometimes there's something that's got you, sort of wound up, or the traffic has got you wound up because there's a problem on the roadways. As my friend Ken Weaver says in the mornings, you've got to pack your patience and just take a deep breath and understand that there's nothing you can do about the situation, and getting angry doesn't help anything. But let's de-escalate. Let's not escalate. Don't engage. Take a deep breath. We do that sometimes on this show. Maybe we should do it right now. Time to take a deep breath. Sure, the traffic is bad, but let's take a deep breath and let out all of that anxiety, all that pressure, ready to go. And slowly release. Okay, one more. Listen, one more deep cleansing breath. Here we go. In with the good air. Out with the bad. That's right. Just keep doing that for just a minute or two, and you'll either pass out or you'll
kind of lightheaded.
Feel better. That's right. It is 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 76 degrees, a cloudy day, some rain and thunderstorms possible throughout this evening, but clear and cooler weather the rest of the week. Full forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Federal indictments today against 5 former Memphis police officers in the death of a black driver. Derek Dennis reports.
Multiple counts filed against the 5 former officers, including deprivation of rights under color of law, excessive force, and failure to intervene before the death of Tyre Nichols, a black driver pulled over in a traffic stop last January. Prosecutors say the officers conspired to brutally assault Nichols, ignore his need for immediate medical attention, and then tried to cover up their actions by allegedly failing to report the assault, removing their body-worn cameras, or by characterizing the 29-year-old Nichols as the aggressor. In addition to this federal indictment, the former officers also face state charges related to Nichols' death, to which they have all pleaded not guilty.
And now that the FDA has given the green light to the Moderna and Pfizer one-shot COVID boosters, the CDC is expected to sign off in the coming days, which means shots could start going into arms later this week. These updated vaccines will be available for those 6 months and older. The FDA says it's confident in the safety and effectiveness of these vaccines and that the benefits outweigh any risk. Money News, Daria Albinger.
Stocks fell a day before a major report on the economy. The Dow closed down 17 points, the Nasdaq fell 144, and the S&P gave up 26. Investors are anxiously awaiting the latest Consumer Price Index, or CPI, a key report on inflation. It'll be followed a day later by the Producer Price Index, which measures inflation on the wholesale level. The Fed will also pay close attention to the indices ahead of their meeting next week because they could factor into whether the central bank will raise interest rates again. Apple's unveiled its next generation of iPhones with faster cameras and processors, not to mention a new charging system. The iPhone 15 is due in stores on September 22nd. Prices are going to remain the same, except for the fanciest model. The iPhone 15 Pro Max will set you back $1,199, up $100 from the last model.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, if you want to add some gold or silver to your portfolio, listen up. I want to tell you about Nashville Gold and Coin. And if you're looking to buy real, actual, hold it in your hand, gold, silver, or bullion, let me tell you, this is the place I do business, and it's a place that I can recommend. You'll get honest, friendly customer service and a real precious metals education. They also specialize in the buying, selling, and appraising of coins. You probably have no idea how much those old coins that are laying around your house might be worth. I brought in a few silver coins that I had in a shoebox, buried in my sock drawer, been there forever, hadn't thought about it in years. Turned out to be worth $1,652. I was really surprised. Whether you're in the market to purchase precious metals, you just want to find out what those coins in your closet might be worth, schedule a one-on-one consultation today. Go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7, Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. And we're glad that you're with us. Yeah, we got stuff to talk about. Let's go to our election report 2024. Got to have the proper music there. It's still a long way off, but there are some things that are happening out there. And mostly it's happening to Joe Biden. Things continue to look worse and worse and worse for him. The White House, according to the Daily Caller, should be worrying about recent polls showing low approval of Joe Biden and the continuing concerns about his age. But apparently a Democrat strategist says that they shouldn't become too preoccupied. Listen, if I were a Democrat right now, I am certainly that I would be, panicking at this point, because I'm telling you the numbers are not good at all. Let me read this. I have affinity for this guy because I worked with him side by side with him back in the Fox days, and he's a Democrat. Don't get me wrong, but he's a guy who, as a pollster, I think always told me, the truth rather than stuff that was just, fodder, just, spin. And he's saying, really, you need to watch out here. There's been a huge change in the race for president. It has more to do with elite opinions than the outcome of the race than it does with actual numbers. There's been a marginal improvement in Donald Trump's position, largely due to Joe Biden's low ratings, both for job performance and his handling of the economy. Biden is also plagued by an increasing number of Democrats who are very lukewarm to his position atop the party's ticket. Indeed, due to Biden's age and an increasing perception of corruption involving his son Hunter Biden, who we learned this week is likely to be indicted on gun charges before the end of the month, Biden's vulnerabilities as a candidate are rapidly piling up. The reason this is important is that with a spate of polls, including recent national polling by his firm, Schoen Cooperman Research, showing that Trump's ratings as president, 52 approve and 44 disapprove, are close to 10 points higher than Biden's contemporaneous ratings, 44 approve, 54 disapprove, almost, bass backwards. Political analysts are starting to realize that what happened in 2016 could be a repeat of 2020. That is an upset victory for Donald Trump. Remember, he's a Democrat. To be sure, for the last 6 to 9 months, both before and after the former president's 4 indictments, the narrative among elites have been pretty much as follows. Trump is damaged goods. He can't focus on his campaign. He's got too many things going on. Women won't vote for him. But now it's a different story. The data continues to show Trump roughly a 40-point lead over his closest primary opponent, a 1-point lead over Biden in the face-to-face matchups. But there's a lot of weakness. I think when you talk about Joe Biden, there's a lot of weakness in his numbers. In other words, Democrats say, yeah, I'm going to vote for him. But that support is a mile wide and an inch deep. There's no depth to that support. Let's see. Joe Biden, plainly speaking, the emphasis that Biden administration has been selling on Bidenomics has fallen flat. Well, of course it has. Everybody understands that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't sell. And the administration's ratings on economic management remain stuck below 40% and have even shown slight erosion in some national polls. The reason that the sea change among elite opinion is so important is the donor class obsessively reads the latest available polling data and related commentary. That as more and more people recognize the likelihood of a Trump nomination and potentially even presidency is a real possibility, it will become tougher to raise and deploy funds needed to challenge Trump in the 2 states in which he is vulnerable, Iowa and New Hampshire. This is not to say Trump has the nomination locked up. He does not. Well, I think he does. But when I look at the polling in detail, I don't see a clear path for any other Republican candidate to upset him. Well, that's what I'm saying. Who's going to beat him when he's 40 points ahead? It's an unprecedented situation in American politics. It's likely that we will go into the presidential race with 2 candidates who have favorability ratings below 40%. I've written previously there's an opening for a no-labels candidate, and this is something I agree with him on. Even though he's a Democrat, I think he is right about this. When you have Trump, there are people who are passionately for Trump, and there are people who are passionately against Trump. With Biden, there are people, a small number of people who are passionately for him, and a much larger number of people who don't think that he's the guy. And when you find yourself in American politics in a situation where neither candidate is seen by the electorate writ large, not just a part of the electorate, but the entire electorate, as being sort of, not likable or candidates of which they can really identify with, you are opening the door for a third-party challenge. And when you throw a third party into the mix, then you've really got a problem. I mean, Ross Perot in 92 got nearly 20% of the popular vote, 19%, as I recall. Now, that may be ancient history, but it's not ancient history. But what is not ancient history is the extraordinary dissatisfaction and cynicism the electorate, I'm talking about the entire electorate, holds today And indeed, on the Democrat side, that will be continue to be renewed push to keep Biden in the race because while her numbers have improved slightly, Vice President Kamala Harris remains deeply unpopular. She says she's ready to take over, by the way. So anyway, Douglas Schoen, a Democrat strategist, and he said, you know, the White House should be concerned. I think that indeed that's right. Listen to this. President Joe Biden has suffered a huge drop in support in Iowa, the politically critical state that Democrats kicked to the curb when they rejiggered their primary schedule. In the latest Emerson College polling survey, the president tumbled 19 points in caucus support, though he had a significant lead over distant challengers led by Robert F. Kennedy. Women and younger voters led the mutiny. Young voters and women voters are two groups who have lower support for Biden than their counterparts. Wow. Biden fell from 69% in May to 50% last week. And this is in Iowa only. But neither Kennedy nor Marianne Williams were the beneficiaries. Again, if you're a Democrat and you're dissatisfied and you have a third-party candidate out there, maybe that's where you go, especially if that candidate was once a Democrat and now considers himself an independent Democrat like Joe Manchin. I think Biden's in trouble. On the Republican side, Trump also lost support in the state that will continue, but hardly a worry. He's way ahead of Governor Ron DeSantis. Let me just pull that up. I get you the latest numbers because I think these latest numbers on the Real Clear Politics website, which if you love politics, you ought to be going to this every day. Okay, so in the national race, and this is the average of all polls, Trump leads DeSantis by 40 points. How do you overcome that? How do you overcome that? All right, so let's look at Iowa, which is the first rattle out of the box. Average of all the polls, Trump 46, DeSantis 15.8. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where the rest of the field overtakes Donald Trump. I just don't see it. That's the average. He leads DeSantis by 30 points. That's astonishing. I mean, it is an unusual situation. He has got, in my mind, you may want to not use the word locked up, but he's certainly going to be very, very difficult to beat. Let's go to New Hampshire, which is number 2. Trump leads DeSantis by 30 points in New Hampshire. And I'm telling you, DeSantis is putting all of his money in Iowa and New Hampshire, and he's barely making a dent. The Trafalgar Group says, and it's a Republican poll, Trump 50, DeSantis 11, meaning that Trump leads DeSantis in New Hampshire by 39 points. All right, but then there's the weird thing when you look at a potential matchup of Trump and Biden. Let me get you this one. General election matchups. Well, it's not working. Biden 44, Trump 43. Biden leads. It's a virtual tie. That's nationally. Biden DeSantis. Biden leads by 3.8. Trump Harris. Trump would win by 5 points. There you go. These numbers looking sort of weak. The poll numbers, again, are only a snapshot. Wilson say, Wilson, why do you spend so much time talking about polls? Well, I mean, I think it's important to know where we are, where the electorate stands. I don't look at one poll and make any decisions. I look at several polls, but there's always an understanding. You need to make sure you understand this about polls. A lot of people discount polls. Well, I don't pay any attention to the polls. They're always wrong. You know what? They're not always wrong. And they are always never to be looked at more than a snapshot in time, where we are at a particular moment. It doesn't mean that's the way it's going to end up. It just means that's where we are at the moment. And when you see 5, 6, 7 polls all showing basically the same thing, then you get some sense that that's where people are. There is one caveat to that, and it is true that Trump supporters often lie to pollsters. But they're not lying about their support for Trump. They want to talk about their support for Trump. They want to make sure that everybody understands that. And if the Trump numbers are off because people are lying to pollsters, well, then it means that Trump is probably doing better than these numbers suggest. I think these numbers are accurate. I think Trump is the guy to beat, and I don't see anybody who can beat him. I can't imagine a scenario. But, maybe there will be one, but I can't see a scenario where somebody else overtakes Trump. I think he's going to be the nominee. And we'll know this by February or March of next year. We'll have this pretty much figured out by then. So keep watching. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. Let me talk about King & Associates. They've been in business in Brentwood for over 25 years. They are an independent agency, and I think that's a huge advantage for you. And here's why. 2 reasons. Number one, independent agency means you're going to get great personal service. When you call this number, in fact, 615-329-8121, you don't get a call center. You don't get a recording that says, oh, your call is important to us. Please stand by. Somebody, a real human, will answer the phone and talk to you. What a concept. Have you ever tried to reach one of these, website internet companies that sell insurance? You can't get anybody on the phone. Then the other thing that's good about an independent agency is they can shop around and find the actual policy that is best for you, that really fits your need, not some square peg that they're trying to force into a round hole. That's the kind of personal service you get at an independent agency. Multi-policy discounts can save you a lot of money. 20, 25, 30, even 35%. Huge savings. It starts by getting your royal review with King & Associates Insurance. Just log into tkinginsurance.com. Again, that's tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance and Associates Royal Treatment, and you're going to get really great rates.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, Call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on the hot seat. A 17-year-old Tennessee boy dead after a week after a shooting. The search still on in Pennsylvania for a convict that escaped almost 2 weeks ago. And 3 women and doctors have filed lawsuits against the state of Tennessee when it comes to the near total abortion ban and how their health's been affected by it. Those stories and more coming up at 5 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, the Speaker of the House, I think, gave a pretty good performance today, talking about the impeachment inquiry and the need for one. But he has got some problems up there in that there are some conservatives who think he's not going far enough, and there are some moderates out there who fear he will go too far. What a tightrope Kevin McCarthy has to walk. I'll explain all that coming up in the next hour right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 58 minutes past the hour. Let's talk about D.T. McCall and Sons. I mean, really, honestly, good people. I mean, how could they not be good people? They've been in business for 100 years. Now, let me just assure you about one thing. You don't make it more than 100 years unless you have a reputation for treating people right, and I think they really do. They're not going to play games with you. They're just going to deal straightforward with you. They don't do the thing like the big box store does where they say, okay, you want this thing? Okay, well, do you want cords and hoses to make it work? Well, of course you do. And they'd say that's an extra charge. Well, you want it delivered? That's an extra charge. You want the old thing hauled away? That's an extra charge. You want it installed? Yeah, that's an extra charge. And then you look at it, and the next thing you know, that good price that they quoted you at the big box store, not such a good price. At D.T. McCall's, they're going to give you an honest price. They're going to give you a price that is a good price, but it's an honest one. And there'll be no extra upcharge for delivery, setup, haul away of the old thing. That's the kind of straightforward way that they do business with people. So whatever it is you need, appliances, furniture, mowers, gun safes, I mean, whatever it is, why not go to D.T. McCall and Sons? They have 5 convenient locations. Find out more about where they are and how they can help you and provide things for your lovely home at dtmccalls.com.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 75 degrees. It's been a cloudy day. Chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the evening with sunny, clear skies the rest of the week. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Republican House members are already threatening to kick Speaker Kevin McCarthy out of his job and leadership. Brittany Shepard with more.
On Tuesday, GOP Congressman Matt Gaetz threatened to bring a motion to vacate against Speaker McCarthy, a procedure that would effectively oust McCarthy from his role in Republican leadership. On the House floor, Gaetz said McCarthy did not keep certain promises he made while lobbying to be Speaker, including holding votes on term limits and releasing tapes regarding January 6. Gaetz also said he's willing to lead the resistance within the GOP against McCarthy and the Democrats McCarthy's willing to work with.
Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 reporting that a 17-year-old boy has died almost a week after being shot in Clarksville. The shooting happened on Wednesday, September 6th at the intersection of Wilma Rudolph Boulevard and Holiday Drive. Clarksville police say they will not release the teen's name, and officials are still searching for the suspect, who they believe fled the vehicle and ran away on foot. In Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro telling reporters today that he's confident that they'll capture escaped convict Danilo Cavalcante at some point, saying they have contained him to an area following an incident with a homeowner last night where he broke into a home and later ran off. Former FBI agent Brad Garrett says this could be the break that law enforcement has been waiting to help narrow down the search.
They may have gotten lucky because of this interaction that happened yesterday or last night in reference to him going into a garage, getting his hands on a .22 rifle with a scope and a light, getting shot at by the owner. And that's probably the area that or something close to that, where he is contained. So we'll see.
And officials say he did not have a shirt on when he was spotted. They believe that's still the case. And right now, staying here in Tennessee, back in Tennessee, Fox 17 says that 3 women and their doctors have filed a lawsuit against the state, arguing that they have been denied, quote, necessary and potentially life-saving medical care due to the state's almost complete abortion ban. They claim they had health conditions during their pregnancies that put their lives at risk, and they've asked for the state to issue injunctive relief necessary to protect the health and lives of pregnant Tennesseans with emergent medical conditions. And 5 other women in Idaho and Oklahoma have filed similar lawsuits today. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air for the third hour of the extravaganza we call The Drive. Everybody settle back. We got a lot of stuff to cover here, a lot of ground. We're going to be going to Washington, D.C. We're going to be going to New Mexico to talk about that insane governor there. A whole lot of stuff that we need to cover in the next few minutes. So let's get her started with a Rip Snorton hour. What do you say? We ever had a Rip Snorton hour?
Rip Snorton.
It's a Rip Snorton hour. I had a good friend who used to do his impression of me, which was sort of like a Warner Brothers character. It's sort of a cross between what was the name of the guy that he was always, my biscuits are burning,
Yosemite Sam.
Yosemite Sam and Foghorn Leghorn. he always, that was his impression of me. Well, I say, so it's a Rip Snorton day. It is. That's what it is. Let's talk about what's happening in Washington right now. Look, I've long been of the opinion that a house divided, like Lincoln and others, the house divided against itself cannot stand. And we've got, as Republicans, we're fighting among ourselves when we need to be focused on fighting against what the Democrats are doing in a cohesive and united way. I really do believe that. And in Washington today, perfect example of that, you got Matt Gaetz, who I like Matt Gaetz. Don't get me wrong. I like him a lot. But he's coming after the speaker, and he's saying, look, the speaker promised to do this, that, and the other, and he hasn't done it, and therefore I'm going to, if you don't get it straightened out, Mr. Speaker, sort of a warning shot across his bow today. He said, we're coming after you, and we're going to ask that they vacate the seat. Now, I don't think he has the votes to vacate the seat. I just don't think the votes are there. But here's Matt Gaetz from earlier today.
On this very floor in January, the whole world witnessed a historic contest for House Speaker. I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair. We have had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes as you promised. There has been insufficient accountability for the Biden crime family, and instead of cutting spending to raise the debt limit, you relied on budgetary gimmicks and rescissions so that you ultimately ended up serving as the valet to underwrite Biden's debt and advance his spending agenda. Mr. Speaker, you boasted in January that we would use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. But here we are, 8 months later, and we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden.
Well, boy, there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, it would be wrong to send the subpoena to Hunter Biden. That is exactly what Hunter Biden's attorneys were counting on. You get all the facts, and then you go after Hunter Biden. If you start by calling Hunter Biden in for questioning right off the bat, then you block the ability to investigate other matters. But let's go through these things one by one right here.
We have had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes as you promised.
Well, hold on a minute. The voter requirement doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It just hadn't happened yet. I mean, there have been a lot of things that have taken priority on the House business, and this is one of them. But I don't think there's any problem with him getting that vote. But and then about the thing about
demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes as you promised.
Well, he did release them and to a group of people. Just a complete release of them, I don't know, but movement has been made in that direction.
There has been insufficient accountability for the Biden crime family.
No, that's wrong. Now, that's not just wrong. He has supported the work of the House Ways and Means Committee, the Judiciary Committee, and the House Oversight Committee. He's been a powerful supporter of their investigation, and that investigation is moving apace. And there'll be more on that in just a moment. So that's really not very fair.
And instead of cutting spending to raise the debt limit, you relied on budgetary gimmicks and rescissions so that you ultimately ended up serving as the valet to underwrite Biden's debt.
You know, I think that may be true, but the budget fights are not over yet, and we may indeed be coming to a shutdown of the government in the days ahead. So he has a point there, but I don't think the fight is over.
And advance his spending agenda. Mr. Speaker, you boasted in January that we would use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. But here we are, 8 months later, and we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden.
Listen, I think he is frustrated at the pace of things, and I understand that. He has a couple of valid points. He does not have, I think, in many cases, completely valid points on some of the other things. So, you know, here's Gates railing at the Speaker of the House, saying you're not moving fast enough, you're not doing the things you promised. Basically, he's dissatisfied, Gates is. But he shouldn't be mad at Gates. Gates should be mad at the moderates inside the Republican Party who are against some of the things that Gates would like to see happen. And the Speaker has to walk this fine line, this tightrope between the conservatives like Gates and their demand for action now on everything that they care about, and the fact that he has to also, worry about the moderates and not having the votes. Here's a perfect example of not having the votes. Today, the Speaker of the House said we're going to have an impeachment inquiry. But he did not take it to the floor of the House. He simply made the pronouncement and said the committees I've given them permission to do that. Now, this is a 3-minute clip. But the reason before we get into that, the reason that he doesn't have the votes on the floor is not because the conservatives are not with him. The conservatives are with him, but because the moderates are against him on this matter, and they don't want to see an impeachment vote. They're in purple states, and they believe there'll be blowback and that they might not be reelected. They're worried about covering their backsides for the upcoming election. So, to be honest with you, Matt Gaetz, you should be more angry at the moderates who are slowing down the progress of things that the Speaker can accomplish. He needs the conservative votes. He also, in the narrow margins that he has in the House, where there are just a few Republican seats that keep them in power over the Democrats, he has to have both. And what a tightrope it is to walk if you're the Speaker of the House. Here's what happened today with regard to impeachment inquiry. I think this is the right tone. I think McCarthy is doing the right thing here. He would take it to the floor of the House, but he can't. Although the conservatives would support him, the moderates would not. I think Matt Gaetz has got a good point here, but his anger, I think, is misdirected. Here we go, the Speaker of the House.
The months that we were gone and the weeks, House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct. Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption. Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his sons and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration. treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. That's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer at the Committee on Oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the president and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us.
So I think, that McCarthy is behind the push to try to get more information and to go after this thing, but I think not in an aggressive way, but in a smart way. This is not going to happen on Matt Gaetz's timetable. And as much as I like Matt Gaetz and I appreciate the positions that he takes and the pressure that he has placed to make McCarthy sort of yield to the concerns of the conservatives, which he should do, Matt Gaetz needs to understand that when you're Speaker of the House, you have to be Speaker of the House, and you may be the Republican leader in the House, but you are also the leader of both the conservatives and the moderates. Again, Gaetz, it's not that Gaetz doesn't have a point. I think his anger is misplaced. And you got McCarthy over there trying to make things work and get the votes he needs on everything by keeping, both the conservatives and the moderates happy. And it's a very difficult, if not impossible, job to do. Gaetz, I applaud his enthusiasm and his desire to keep the pressure on for the things that he wants when he wants them. But reality is that, when you're Speaker of the House, you have to be Speaker of all the Republicans, not just the conservatives. And there are a fair number of Republicans in the House who are not conservatives. They are moderates, and they come from purple states. And if you do make them do things that are uncomfortable, you may lose those seats. And remember, you don't have much of a margin as Speaker. You got to be big picture. Matt Gaetz, although I applaud him, is looking very narrowly at the things that he and a few other conservatives care deeply about, but he's not understanding the role of the Speaker and the difficulty he has in walking that tightrope. I'm not trying to be an apologist for McCarthy. I think he is handling things masterfully. That speech right there laid out all the concerns that Republicans have. It will go to committee. It will not go to the floor for a vote because the moderates aren't ready to have that vote. And they fear that they'll lose their jobs if they have to vote for anything that smacks of impeachment. But the impeachment inquiry, by going straight to committee without a House vote, is going forward. And I think it will ultimately lead to the facts that we need for impeachment. It just won't be on Matt Gaetz's timetable. 21 past the hour. Are you in the market for a pole barn? Well, the two brothers that run Stoltzco are the two guys you need to talk with. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltzco difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool or work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. Look, I think the best thing you can do is go to their website and look at some of the examples of things that they have done. It's Stoltzco.com, Stoltzco.com, and you're going to look and you'll say, wow, that's impressive. I think you're going to really be impressed, and you'll realize this ain't your grandfather's pole barn. Call them at 615-622-5992. Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and a great customer service is affordable. 615-622-5992 or Stoltzco.com. That's Stoltzco.com.
Impeachment inquiry for President Biden moving forward. An update on the former Franklin soccer coach accused of drugging and raping boys, and a Nashville officer to have no charges filed against him in a shooting. I'll have those stories and more at 5:30 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, listen, I think it's my job as your host here, and as somebody who spent some time in the walking the halls of Capitol Hill now, and somebody I am a bona fide conservative. You and I probably wouldn't disagree on 5% of the things that are important. But I mean, people, like, I'm trying to explain the nuance, and there are some people who just don't understand nuance. And so, some people on the text line, what, Wilson, you're a moderate, you're a rhino. No, I am not a rhino. And I'm really tired of that conversation, by the way. I am a conservative, and we don't disagree on anything probably in real world terms. But I have the experience of knowing how the frickin' Congress works because I covered it for about 12 years. So, if you want to throw rocks at my analysis and say I don't know what I'm talking about, and because I say it is a tightrope that the speaker is walking, that's fine. But you don't understand how it works. You've never been there. And it is a tightrope. It's like herding cats to get everybody. And so my criticism is we need to be united. And we need to move forward in a way where we're not fighting among each other. That doesn't accomplish a damn thing at all. And so, look, folks, you can roll your eyes and you can call Wilson a rhino, but I'm telling you, McCarthy has to walk a tightrope between the moderates in the Republican Party and the conservatives. And he's only got a 5-seat margin. He can't lose a lot of moderates and he can't lose a lot of conservatives, because if he does, then the Democrats win every freaking vote. Understand nuance. Understand that it's not just cut and dried, that you have to understand that you are, as Speaker of the House, really trying to walk a very thin line to make things work. And Matt Gaetz, who I really love, and I know him a little, and I've been around him some, and I guarantee you and I and Matt Gaetz probably agree on about 99% of things. But what I don't agree with is that, sometimes Matt Gaetz and his desire to have his way, he wants all the things that he wants when he wants them, and then it's not sometimes politically possible. So if you want to go after the Speaker of the House, that's fine. I don't think he has the votes to vacate the seat. I'd be surprised if he does. But one way or the other, he's making his voice known, and that's what he should do. But let's understand that as Speaker of the House, that's not an easy thing to do. So please, folks, I get so tired of trying to give you an explanation that is based on experience and based on an understanding of the institution. And then nobody listens. They shut their ears down when they hear one word they don't like. And then they come at me like, well, you're some kind of rhino. I am not a rhino. And you can kiss my freckled you-know-what if you think I am. Let's have a conversation about that face-to-face, all right? Because I am not. Yeah, and when I come back, I'm going to cover a couple of stories that will, I think you will agree, are very important about what that stupid governor from New Mexico is doing right now. It's all coming up after the news, 5:30 on Super Talk.
It's 5:30. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 75 degrees on Music Row, and the chance for some showers and thunderstorms remains tonight. But the rest of the week looking pretty clear. Complete forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. House Republicans are going to proceed with an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, focused on Hunter Biden's business dealings. They've yet to show concrete evidence that Joe Biden directly benefited. Stephen Portnoy.
It's a directive from a House Speaker under increasing pressure from his right flank.
I do not make this decision lightly.
Kevin McCarthy's ordering House committees to dig deeper into the business dealings of the president's son. He claims Republicans have already uncovered allegations of abuse of power.
These allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption.
The White House says Republicans have turned up no evidence of wrongdoing. Biden aides note McCarthy has flip-flopped on a plan to have House members vote to take this step.
And an update on a crime story here in Tennessee. More victims have come forward following the arrest of former Franklin soccer coach Camilo Campos, who's been accused of drugging and raping children. 14 victims have now been identified in total. Campos currently being held on a $2 million bond. Here in Nashville, no charges will be filed in January's deadly officer-involved shooting of Mark Capps.
Channel 4 says the district attorney says officers did what was reasonably necessary. The four-time Grammy-winning sound engineer was wanted on aggravated assault and kidnapping charges when he was shot at his Hermitage home by a SWAT officer. Friends said Capps had been under a lot of mental stress at the time. Nashville's Community Oversight Board said police could have de-escalated the situation. No one had to die, but police said at the time they had no record of Capps' mental history. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Gracepoint Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you will know how much your medical care is going to cost before it's actually delivered. Best known for their smart care plans, listen to what you get for $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits, as many times as you want to come in. Free basic labs for the entire year, and because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. Now, if you take that, and you marry it with that high deductible insurance plan that you may have, could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Gracepoint, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why they have been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Listen, they also want you to know that they understand that seasonal allergies are here, they are real, and they have allergy testing and treatment so you can get back out in the great outdoors. Gracepoint Healthcare, Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit. All right, I took some deep cleansing breaths during the commercial break.
Were you listening to a little bit of that Joe Biden jazz?
No, I
That
wasn't.
helped calm you down?
That was something else yesterday, wasn't it? No, I didn't do that. But I will say to you that it does stand sort of on my last nerve. If you and I'm trying to explain something that has some nuance to it and explain to you why it's difficult for the Speaker of the House to meet the needs of Matt Gaetz. Why you say, well, you're just a moderate. Okay, I'm not just a moderate. And there's no way to disprove that. If you've made up that decision about me, fine. But I'm not. What I'm trying to do is explain to you the way things really work. And by coming at me and saying, well, you're a moderate, Wilson, you're just a rhino. Oh, God, I hate that so much. I can't begin to tell you how much I hate that. Because what you're doing is you're sort of proving my point. That the problem in the Republican Party right now is that we are fighting with each other instead of pulling together and being, unified about the things that are important. If you've ever been the boss, you understand that you get tugged in different directions. No matter what, whether you're, at work, in a grocery store or wherever it is that you work, whatever you do, if you're the boss, you're always trying to balance and keep everybody happy, and it's sometimes just not possible. Matt Gaetz is upset because things aren't happening on his timetable. That doesn't mean they're not going to happen, but when you're at the top of the heap and you've got to see the big picture and you've got to balance all the needs and still defeat the Democrats, which is the most important thing every time there's a vote, you can't alienate when you've got a 5-vote lead over the Democrats. You can't alienate any part of the Republican Party. You got to get everybody on board, and finding the common threads that hold people together is a tough job when you have people who come as Republicans from purple states and they look at things very differently. I mean, yeah. If you're from Colorado and you're a Republican, well, parts of Colorado, you've got to walk a very thin line, because if you want to come back and continue to fill that seat, you've got to be wary of the fact that you're not in a ruby red conservative state. And the Speaker of the House has to acknowledge that. If he loses 5 conservatives, he doesn't beat the Democrats. If he loses 5 moderates, he doesn't beat the Democrats. What an incredibly difficult job it is to walk that tightrope. And, for me, when I try to explain to you the nuance of all that, and then what I get on the text line is, well, you're just a rhino. I'm telling you, folks, I've about had enough of that crap. I really have. It wears me out. Think beyond the end of your nose and what you want, to understand that you can't always have what you want when you want it, when you're dealing with a body of people who are not all conservative as you are. So I'm sorry, it just stands on my last nerve when we do that. It's a perfect example of how we are going to lose if we can't get together on some stuff. We must be unified. So, I mean, I'm sorry. It really got under my skin, and I apologize for the outrage, but come on, folks, give me a break. If you've listened to me for 6 years and you don't know where I stand on things, or it's like you don't even know me. Moving on. New Mexico. This is boneheaded governor in the state of New Mexico. She's put on a temporary gun ban, and here's the thing, it's a stunt. Let's just be honest with it. It's a stunt, saying you can't carry a concealed weapon or an open carry, even if you've got the right permits, in Albuquerque or Bernalillo County, which surrounds Albuquerque, for the next 30 days. Well, there could be a court challenge, but I'll tell you something. By the time you got it to court and got a hearing, it'd be over. She knew it was a stunt, and she's getting castigated for it, even by the folks believe it or not, even by the folks over at CNN. She won't come on Fox. She knows what will happen if you came on Fox. She went on CNN, and she still got an earful.
Are you overreaching? Let me give you a hypothetical, right? You're a Democratic governor who's doing this. What if a Republican governor of a state declares a health emergency and unilaterally outlaws abortion in that state, where the legislature has not done so by statute? Following your logic, would that also be sound?
In this situation, honestly, I don't think so, but that is what's happening in this country.
No, it's not what's happening in this country. It continues. I mean, these were great questions, believe it or not. It's the kind of question you don't expect from an anchor at CNN.
We just heard from the sheriff. He joins the attorney general and others who say they won't enforce it. It's unconstitutional. Why do it if it can't be enforced?
Well, that's their opinion. They have no bold actions. They don't have any plans for reducing gun violence.
Well, yeah, I've got a plan, and I told you I was in Albuquerque just a couple of months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. Took a few days, went to vacation, went to the mountains, and as we came back through Albuquerque to catch our flight, we had to go to a big box store. And I'm not making this up. At the front door of the big box store was what looked like the members of a SWAT team. There were like 4 guys in paramilitary gear standing at the front door. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you they've got a tremendous crime problem in Albuquerque. The solution to solving the gun violence in your town is to make sure that the people who are not following the laws are brought to justice and put in the Gray Bar Hotel. That's the answer. Not the people who have concealed carry permits, who obey the law, who respect the Second Amendment, and are doing things by the book. They are not the problem. The problem are the people, and if you ask those people not to carry, then you are basically unilaterally disarming against the criminal element. It's a Democrat state, a liberal governor, liberal policies, by the way, in the state of New Mexico pretty much across the board. Why don't you crack down on the people who are the real cause of the problem? Put a few people in jail. No, we can't possibly do that. No, we can't. It's unfair to put, people in jail just because they, violated the law. No, let's get serious with it. You crack down and make sure that people are prosecuted and put in jail, Governor, and you'll get a lot of your problems solved. I'm sure that, you're frustrated by, the gun violence. But it's not the people with the concealed carry permits. They're the ones who are following the strictures of the law. The people you're worried about are the people who have those guns, and they have them probably in violation of the law. That's your problem. That's where you go. I was shocked going into that store and seeing, guys with, I'm telling you, it looked like a SWAT team, looked like paramilitary gear. They had the heavy guns out the whole 9 yards. They were nice enough. We talked to them, got a restaurant recommendation from them, and ask, you want to go to where the good restaurants are, ask a cop. They know. But they were lovely. But they're there to send a warning that you can't come into this store. And as we're walking through the store, I'll tell you, it's a Target store. It's the only thing we could find. A lot of the stuff in the store, it's like what you hear about in California and other places. It was locked up. If you needed razors, you had to go get somebody to unlock the cabinet. And there was a lot of things in the store that were locked up like that. And the police were there because they've had a lot of theft and they've had some problems. So, I thought this is emblematic of what this town is going through. And the governor may be frustrated by the gun violence, and there has been some. I don't think she's focused in the right way. And it was shocking and surprising that these very salient and tough questions were being asked by a CNN anchor. Nobody is enforcing this governor's ban. Even the Albuquerque Police Department said, we're not getting involved in this. You know, it's the governor's ban. It's not the city's ban. So they said if anybody's going to enforce this, it's going to be the state patrol. Well, they're just not in a position to enforce that. And quite frankly, I don't think that they're going to. The Bernalillo County Sheriff said, I'm not doing this. Here's a story from the Epoch Times. New Mexico's sheriff defies governor's emergency gun ban order. Announced this week that his office will not enforce an emergency order by the governor to temporarily suspend the right to carry firearms in public in and around the city of Albuquerque. It's unconstitutional, so there's no way that we can enforce that order. This ban doesn't do anything to curb gun violence, and the sheriff is correct. Bernalillo County District Attorney Sam Bregman, a Democrat Party leader who was appointed by Grisham, and joined Mayor Tim Keller and Police Chief Harold Medina, saying they, too, would not enforce the ban. A gun rights group filed a federal lawsuit within 24 hours, but it doesn't matter because by the time it gets to court, the 30 days will have been passed. The temporary ban challenges the foundation of our Constitution. She's doing this saying as an emergency health order. In what world does an emergency health order trump a constitutional amendment, the Second Amendment? She's delusional. She's a bonehead. She's a complete raving idiot. And this thing will not stand. I mean, honestly, anybody in Albuquerque who pays one whit of attention to the governor, if I lived in Albuquerque and I had gone through the process of getting a concealed carry permit, I would continue to do exactly what I'd been doing because it will never stand up. If there's a court challenge, you're going to win. So, again, just because you're the governor doesn't mean you get to violate the strictures of the Constitution of the United States. 50 minutes now past the hour. Are you looking for a good meal, reasonably priced, food cooked the way your mama made it? Well, you need to find the nearest Legend Steakhouse. For lunch, it's a great meat and two. Tried the fried pork chops or maybe the Smoky Mountain meatloaf? The fried catfish is one of my favorites. There are 14 different vegetables and casseroles to choose from. And if you see Johnny Fleeman, the owner, be sure to ask for a glass of that famous fruit tea. And when it comes time for dinner, you got to go for one of their steaks with Fleeman's special seasoning. There are several convenient locations. If you're in Davidson County, make a quick run over to the Smyrna location, just off Almaville Road, open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. It's a Tennessee company that's been in business for 34 years. Go to legendsteakhouse.com for locations or to order online. You're going to love Legend Steakhouse, and when you visit, be sure and tell them that your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, sent you.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. it was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Federal indictments handed down to former Memphis officer involved in the death of Tyre Nichols. More victims step forward in the story of a former Franklin soccer coach who's been accused of raping children. And the United States warning North Korea to stay away from Russia. Plus, child poverty, it's up in the United States. Those stories and more coming up at 6 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Mac Maury, before you go, I loved your assessment earlier in the program about Aaron Rodgers and what happened, 3 plays and he's out, maybe the end of his career. Your quick assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I think this could be the end to Aaron Rodgers' career, and I think this could be the beginning of a very important conversation that should have started a long time ago in the NFL about fields and about field management. I mean, we are watching a lot of career-altering injuries on this turf that they're willing to change for the World Cup. They should be willing to do it for their players as well, Brian.
All right. Thank you very much, Mac Maury. It is 56 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. The Wellness Institute of Nashville has done it again. I want you to write down this number, 615-246-5009. Because not only is it a place where you can go and you can get, a treatment for your aches and pains. If you have pain in your arms, your legs, your neck, your back, your arms, or tingling in your extremities, they've got therapies that can really, really help. But here's another reason why you should use this number. It's a great way to show your patriotism because Dr. Kevin Mitchell has a program that he's very hyped on, and it's a good one. It's called Patriot Way Project. You can learn more about it at patriotwayproject.com. The idea is to put flags up and fly them proudly. Already, the Wellness Institute is responsible for flying 75 brand new flags. Now, you can donate at patriotwayproject.com, or just come out to Mount Juliet, take a look at their space-age high-tech spinal facility, and you can make a donation there. They just want you to know that when you visit their facility for spinal or knee treatment, they will give back to the community. So whatever it is, bulging or herniated disc, sciatica, tingling, numbness of the arms or legs, if you're in pain, you should go to the Wellness Institute of Nashville and let them look you over, run their test, give you a plan for feeling better, and begin the process. And by the way, while you're there, check out the Patriot Way Project, patriotwayproject.com, and the Wellness Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Six o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 73 degrees, some showers and thunderstorms possible throughout Middle Tennessee. The rest of the evening, clear and sunny skies the rest of this week, and some cooler temperatures. Weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Federal indictments today against 5 former Memphis police officers in the death of a black driver. Derek Dennis gives us the latest.
Multiple counts filed against the 5 former officers, including deprivation of rights under color of law, excessive force, and failure to intervene before the death of Tyre Nichols, a black driver pulled over in a traffic stop last January. Prosecutors say the officers conspired to brutally assault Nichols, ignore his need for immediate medical attention, and then tried to cover up their actions by allegedly failing to report the assault, removing their body-worn cameras, or by characterizing the 29-year-old Nichols as the aggressor. In addition to this federal indictment, the former officers also face state charges related to Nichols' death, to which they have all pleaded not guilty.
An update on a crime story in Tennessee. More victims have come forward following the arrest of former Franklin soccer coach Camilo Campos, who's been accused of drugging and raping children. 14 victims have now been identified in total. Campos currently being held on a $2 million bond. The United States right now warning North Korea there will be consequences if it makes an arms deal with Russia. Andy Field with the latest from the nation's capital.
The United States and other allies already have crippling sanctions on Russia and North Korea. The Pentagon warning of more to come if Kim Jong-un provides weapons to President Putin.
We would call on North Korea to meet its previous stated public commitments not to supply weapons to Russia.
Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Patrick Ryder saying the U.S. military is watching North Korea's next move.
Transit in Nashville. News 2 reports that a transit center is on its way to Antioch, and today a $5 million grant came in from the Federal Transit Administration Buses and Bus Facilities Competitive Program. The transit center will be located on the southern end of WeGo's Route 55. There will be between 6 and 8 bus bays and a climate-controlled waiting area. And this grant brings the funding total to about $17.5 million so far. And according to some new data from the government, child poverty in the United States more than doubled last year when pandemic-era government benefits expired and inflation kept rising. Karen Travers gives us the reaction from President Biden.
President Biden is slamming congressional Republicans for not supporting an extension of the enhanced child tax credit, saying that policy measure cut child poverty by nearly half. The Census Bureau today reported that child poverty more than doubled in 2022, due in part to COVID-era assistance ending. The president had tried to make the enhanced child tax credit permanent through his Build Back Better legislation, but it was dropped during negotiations with Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. In his budget plan he released earlier this year, the president proposed again expanding the child tax credit as high as $3,600.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, everybody, 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening. Time for the fourth and final hour on this Tuesday, September 12th. Let's finish strong. What do you say? I got a passel, which is more than a bushel and or a peck.
Are we sure about that?
I'm not really sure. My sweet grandmother, she was among the sweetest people that ever walked this planet, and if anybody who knew her would tell you the same. And she used to say, "You know how much I love you, Brian?" I say, "How much?" She said, "A bushel and a peck and a hug around the neck."
Oh.
Isn't that sweet?
That's very sweet.
I didn't know at the time what a bushel or a peck was, but I'm
still not sure. But apparently, a passel. This is the definition: is a large group of people or things of indeterminate number.
It's a passel. Well, that's what I've got. I could count them, but to me, it's an indeterminate number. What is a peck? Well, I know that a peck. What is a peck in a bushel? Here we go. Let me see if I can get the answer. Both are dry volume measures of quarts. A bushel is equal to 32 quarts, while a peck is equal to 8 quarts, or a quarter of a bushel.
Oh, okay.
A peck.
That really doesn't help at all, but okay. I'll go with it.
What is a peck in a bushel? Well, anyway, that's it. But all my life, I knew it was a measure. I later learned it was a measure, but I thought it was a sweet thing that my grandmother said. Bushel and a peck and a hug around the neck. All right. On that really, really lovely historic note, let's move on. Oil prices today took a jump, and I'm telling you, it's concerning. Oil prices jumped about 2% to a near 10-month high today on a tighter supply outlook and a prediction by OPEC. Brent futures rose up to $92 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate rose to 89, just a hair under $90 a barrel. That's expensive oil. I don't think we'll be resupplying the strategic oil reserve with oil prices that high. But here's the thing, and hear me now, and you'll thank me later. When you see oil go up, the next thing that happens is the price of fuel goes up. Oil, fuel, heating oil, diesel, the whole 9 yards. As we start to turn the corner into fall and winter, heating oil becomes a problem in some parts of the country. There's a big demand for it, especially on the East Coast. We don't use it around here, but it is used widely on the East Coast and in other places. And it's gone up. And so what does that mean? It means that it's going to cost you more to fill your tank. It's going to cost people who drive big diesel trucks more to fill up their tanks so they can take things to market. Anybody who has a good or a service is going to pay more because it's going to go up. That's just the way it works. And so when prices go up across the board, that's called inflation. Nothing, and I've said this 1,000 times, and you can repeat it with me, nothing ripples through the economy in a bad way faster than a high price of oil and gas. And so as we look down the pathway, what are we concerned about economically? As a country, we're concerned about inflation. And because inflation is the problem that they're trying to kill, how do they kill it? They kill it by making sure that they raise interest rates. In other words, you have to hurt the economy in some ways to do away with inflation, which is thought as the greatest evil. But at a time when people are paying more for goods and services and food and everything else because of inflation, they're having to go to their credit cards because they can't make ends meet. And the credit cards are through the roof because why? Interest rates are going up and continue to go up. We're at 7% now for a home loan, probably going to go up to about 8% before it's all over with. Interest rates will continue to go up because gas prices are on the rise. That causes inflation. To kill inflation, we have to raise interest rates. None of this is good for the economy. What I will say, however, is it seems to me that we're talking about a situation where the Biden administration, I don't wish the economy ill, but if it's going to be ill, let it be ill when Democrats are running for reelection, okay? Because I'm telling you, he's going to have to answer some questions about this. And it's going to be all his fault. Everybody looks, what's the most important thing to voters? I think without a doubt, it has to be the economy and how they feel like they're faring. If they feel like they're living hand to mouth, if folks feel like they're living hand to mouth, then they're not going to vote Democrat. And so the way I see it right now, they don't have any options. They don't have any place to go to put oil into the market. In fact, everything they do tends to take oil out of the market. So this is on them. And just remember, as you start to pay more at the pump, this is all Joe Biden's fault. There's nobody responsible for that more than Joe Biden. Joe Biden bows to Iran on 9/11 and pays $6 billion to get 5 prisoners back. The administration has reportedly approved a deal with Iran to pay the rogue regime $6 billion in exchange for 5 detained American citizens. The deal, according to the Associated Press, entailed the Biden administration issuing a blanket waiver for international banks to transfer $6 billion in frozen Iranian money from South Korea to Qatar without U.S. sanctions. The money would be held in Qatar's central bank for Iran to use, reportedly, for the purchase of humanitarian goods. Yeah, right. Like that'll happen. In addition, the Biden administration agreed to release 5 Iranian citizens. So they get 5 Iranian citizens. We get 5 Americans back. They also get $6 billion released. I don't know. I don't want these people negotiating my next contract. I'll tell you that for sure. Court rules that the Biden administration was engaged in illegal censorship. You haven't heard much about this, have you? The Biden administration has lost a First Amendment case curtailing its effort to address what it deems to be hate speech or misinformation. As a wider debate rages over free speech and the limits of government power, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit Court ruled Friday that Biden's White House and some government agencies went too far in trying to influence how social media companies regulate their platforms. This, according to the Washington Examiner. The question now is how the administration will react and whether it will appeal to the Supreme Court. They would be well advised not to. The Supreme Court will hand them another loss. We had a guy just the other day, he was talking, he said, why is it I never hear about, the courts ever doing anything to brush back the administration? Well, there's a perfect example. The courts have. It just takes so long for it to happen. And it doesn't get a lot of coverage, honestly, when it does happen. But here's an example of how the courts have brushed back. The Biden administration does whatever it wants to do. They do it by executive order, or they just do what they think they want to do. And they say, let the chips fall where they may. We'll figure it out in court later. And eventually the courts, come in and say, no, you can't do that. First Amendment case, Second Amendment case, this whole thing about student loans, they've all been brushed back by the courts because the Biden administration has gone too far. All right. I want you to know that we feel rather sad to hear this next story. It probably needs some sad music. We use this a lot, don't we? President Joe Biden plunged into sadness and frustration because of the breakdown of a plea deal between his son, Hunter Biden, and the Justice Department, the New York Times has reported. More than a dozen people close to the Biden family told the Times that following the deal's collapse, conversation between father and son are tinged with resignation that was not there before. The sweetheart deal broke down after the Justice Department and Hunter Biden's lawyers could not agree on terms. And the judge in the case refused to accept a revised plea deal that would have offered Biden broad legal immunity. This possibility left the president stunned, according to the Times. The bond, they want you to know, between Joe and Hunter Biden is nonetheless ironclad. Biden family confidence in the president has, too, been deferential to his younger son, appearing unwilling to tell him no, despite Hunter's problems and the long trail of bad decisions. Oh, well.
You want to see my temper? Keep going.
Hush up, boy.
That is not a joke. That is a natural fact.
All right.
Come on, man. Bingo. I'm not going to be a mule. I got something to do. I got to go do. Boom.
We all got buttons. How many buttons do you have?
Oh, I got a bunch of them.
You got a lot of Joe Biden buttons?
I did not say that. That's not. I did not say that.
My favorite is this composite.
Think about it. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it. I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation.
With the whole, the whole. Excuse me. All men and women created by the. Go. You know the thing.
You know the thing.
Give me a break.
We could do this for hours. This is maybe a bit troubling. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but nonetheless, it is something that is happening. New lawsuits in Minnesota and Oklahoma mark a growing, and they admit, a long-shot effort to keep former President Donald Trump off the ballots during next year's presidential elections. Citing the 14th Amendment, and it's a so-called insurrection clause. The suits come in the wake of legal challenges filed in Colorado by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics, the first significant effort in court to block Trump from the ballot box following the January 6th Capitol riot. Under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, known as the Insurrectionist Disqualification Clause, no person shall hold any office, civil or military, under the United States who, having previously taken an oath as an officer of the United States to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. This is a civil war hangover, or hang on, it's still there. It's really not aimed at situations like this. Most everybody who really understands the Constitution says it's a completely long shot. Ultimately, if it has to be decided by the Supreme Court, it will be in time for the election, but I don't think it's going anywhere. Nonetheless, Democrats desperate because they see how weak their candidate are and the relative strength of Donald Trump, and they're doing everything they can to keep him off the ballot. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. If my opinion about that changes, we'll start covering it in a more big way, but honestly, I just don't think there's any there. 20 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock. Let me talk about, if I could, Beacon Capital Management. It's a company that we talk about often here. The experts at Beacon want to know how you're faring in this rough and tumble market. The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but they have a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. I mean, what do you have to lose except for all the worry? Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. And at the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all of your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. Again, do you really know how your plan will shake up? Have a fresh set of eyes take a look at it. 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com. There you go. I didn't know it was a song. Where did you find that? How did you know about that?
Well, it was one of our super texters, actually, and for a couple of them, as a matter of fact, let me know that Doris Day performed this tune back in 1950.
I never knew that. I never knew it was a song. I just knew it was something she said.
So your grandmother must have been a fan of Doris Day.
Who knew that my Meemaw was a fan of Doris Day?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. Well, that's really something. Well, I'm glad you found that. Send that to me.
Yeah, will do.
That could become... I'll have to share that with my sister because she probably doesn't know that either. That's really cool. I did not know that. You surprised me with that one. Thank you, Super Text listeners. All right, on to serious news. The Biden border crisis is beginning to bite in blue states. And this is something that I think really could hurt Biden in a big way. I mean, where is the blue support, right? It's in major metropolitan areas like places like Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., New York City. That's where a lot of the Democrat support is, right? And those cities are really facing a problem. I mean, you've heard the mayor of New York talking about the problem with the immigrants who are coming to their town and usurping all their resources to the point where they're having to trim budgets by 15% to pay for the care of about 110,000 migrants.
Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City.
Well, that's what he says. And I think, I understand that their desire is to try to point the finger at Republicans like Governor Abbott, Greg Abbott of Texas. But let's here's, facts are stubborn things. There are 110,000 migrants that they are now trying to care for. But the Texas governor is responsible for shipping by bus only about 13,000 of those. It comes to about 12% is the way I figured it out the other day. So if you got a problem with the number of migrants that have come to New York City and you're pointing your finger at the governor of Texas, he's only done something that points to the problem. But the real problem is that 88% of the migrants that have come to New York City had nothing to do with the governor of Texas. They have to do with the Biden policies on the border. Now, he goes on in this thing where he talks about, the Texas governor this and the Texas governor that. It's the Biden administration that's responsible for the crisis on the border. And this story in the Washington Examiner, what is unfolding in New York City regarding immigrants, is a prime example of what happens when you combine bad local policies with poor enforcement of federal immigration laws. They have created a permissive environment where, unsurprisingly, migrants have fled to seek shelter. It's a confluence of bad policy and inaction that has made for an incredibly toxic and sad mix that threatens New York City. But it isn't the fault of the governor of Texas. It is the fault of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. So, aim your ire where it is deserved. Abbott, by the way, who talks to The Hill, he says that Adams is way off base in his migrant complaints, and he could not last a week in Texas. And he's right. That's where the real problem is. New York City's just getting a little dose of it. And so are other so-called sanctuary cities. 30 minutes now past the hour. Let's talk about Everseel, and it starts with an explanation of what Everseel really is. It is a sealant that can be used on your exterior wood and concrete. And it's a sealant that will protect your wood and concrete in an amazing way. It actually it started out as a product that was used in industrial applications, and the folks over at Everseel figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. First thing they do is they come in and they do a deep cleaning of your wood and concrete, bring it back, make it look as new as it ever can. Then they use their patented seal, which will absorb all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete and will prevent any further deterioration. And this is the amazing part. Listen closely. It will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. Wow. I mean, honestly, think about it. Think about how much money you'll save over 30 to 50 years if you don't have to, seal your deck every year or two. I mean, you're talking about doing it once and pretty much just forgetting about it for a long, long, long time. So if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to be interested in it, why don't you reach out to my friend Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseel? Here's the number, 1-844-EVER-USA. 844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It's time for the cleanup half hour where we just run through some stories that we really haven't had time to talk about throughout the rest of the show, and I want to make sure we get them into the record. We have an official record here that must be kept, accurately. No, I don't know. I think it's important to try to get a whole panoply. Well, there's a big word. Panoply of stories across. It's a passel of stories. Here we go. And this is a serious story. I shouldn't be messing around. 5 former Memphis officers federally indicted in the Tyree Nichols case. This is not a shock. I think everybody knew this was probably going to happen. And quite frankly, I think they're justified in doing so. An indictment was filed in federal court Tuesday, charging 5 former Memphis police officers with depriving Tyree Nichols of his rights during a January 7th arrest that led to his death. The indictment lists 4 separate counts, including excessive force and failure to intervene, deliberate indifference, conspiracy to witness tamper, and witness tampering for former officers and Emmett Martin, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. It also lists overt acts committed by the officers during the incident. One of the acts includes Haley and Mills taking off their body-worn cameras and setting them aside before gathering with the other officers to discuss the force used on Nichols and making statements such as, "I thought when he wasn't going to fall, we about killed this man," while emergency medical personnel were there at the scene. We've seen the video. It was horrific, of Tyree Nichols being kicked, punched, tased, and pepper sprayed. And we've all heard Mr. Nichols cry out for his mother, saying, "I'm just trying to go home." And officers who violate the civil rights of those they were sworn to protect undermine public safety, which depends on the community's trust in law enforcement. They dishonor their fellow officers who do their work with integrity every day. And the Justice Department, in this particular case, though I have many issues with the Justice Department, is right to hold these officers accountable for their actions. It was tragic what happened there in Memphis. This is sad. The U.S. has dumped the playing of the Star-Spangled. The U.S. has dumped the Star-Spangled Banner as being played for their final matches. The U.S. Open did not play the U.S. national anthem during the women's or men's finals last weekend. The anthem went missing in New York as the games found its 2 victors. While turning its back on the national anthem, U.S. Open organizers were excited to announce they would play the so-called Black national anthem ahead of the men's singles championship. The Open did play that national anthem for their opening ceremonies. This is not right. This is wrong. It's the U.S. Open. If you want to claim and call it the U.S. Open, then you have to acknowledge that this is played in the United States. And to not play the Star-Spangled Banner, but do play the Black national anthem, if you want to do that, that's fine. But why not play? I mean, I'm not particularly wild about it, but I mean, you've got to play the Star-Spangled Banner. Really reprehensible. I will never watch another tennis match, but that's not saying much because I generally don't watch tennis. This story, Chris, get ready. This is titillating stuff here.
Uh-oh.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, this is not it. A Virginia Democrat candidate running for the Commonwealth's House of Delegates this is Democrat, this is the state house, running for the House of Delegates, is being accused of performing sex acts with her husband in front of an online audience and encouraging viewers to send them tip money. Yeah, that's right. Should we? No, I can't do that. Can't do that. I'll get in trouble. Nurse practitioner Susanna Gibson, who is running in a competitive race in suburban Richmond for the House of Delegates in the 57th District, reportedly used a platform, I don't know if I can say this, Chatterbait. To stream sex acts with her husband. A 40-year-old mother of 2 is said to have posted more than a dozen videos that were archived on a site called, I'm not even going to say this, in September of 2022, which is after she officially entered the race, and the most recent videos were archived on September 30th of 2022, this according to the Washington Post on Monday. The videos were no longer available to be viewed on, I can't say it, this weekend, but Fox News Digital confirmed information in the Post story. Gibson reportedly violated the terms of this website whose name I will not say, and conditions by soliciting tips in order to perform specific sex acts that could be seen on video, telling viewers she was raising money for a good cause.
Oh, my.
That's right. Gibson is said to have told viewers that she will perform specific sex acts in a private room if viewers pay her more tokens. I need like more tokens before I let him do that, Gibson told viewers in one video, referring to performing a sex act with her husband. Gibson's campaign did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Fox News Digital. Gibson told the Washington Post, the incident represents an illegal invasion of my privacy designed to humiliate me and my family. No, It's not. There is no way that this is an attack on her privacy. She gave that up the moment she posted the video. It won't intimidate me. It won't silence me. My political opponents and their Republican allies have proven they're willing to commit a sex crime to attack me. Not true. And my family, because there's no line they won't cross to silence a woman when they speak up. Gibson's lawyers, this is a thin read, Daniel P. Watkins told the outlet that spreading the videos could be a violation of the state's Revenge Porn Act, which is, by the way, a Class 1 misdemeanor. We're working closely with state and federal enforcement. Now, Gibson is set to face her GOP opponent, David Owens, in a November 7th election. I have seen frame grabs from this. Your oh my would be very appropriate.
Well, I was going to wait to see what was going to be said next.
Oh, my.
Oh, my. By the way, today there was a hearing about some of the stuff that's in kids' libraries or school libraries, and the big fight between the LGBTQ+1, whatever it is these days, and parents who think that it goes too far. And Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana read two excerpts from a couple of books that the LGBTQ community is trying to defend. You talk about oh my. It was unbelievable. I mean, I got the soundbite ready, and I was going to play it and talk about that story, but there's no way I could play the things that came out of Senator John Kennedy's mouth.
Ooh.
I mean, because he was reading right from the books. I mean, it would have been. There was no way it could have been broad. Apparently, they decided not to broadcast the hearing because so much of it was so out there that it was just too much. I mean, it was. If you want to look up the story, well, I would advise you to do it. But I mean, be ready, not for tender ears at all. And I ultimately had to decide that I just couldn't tell that story on this radio station without getting in a lot of problem. I would have been bleeping every third word. I mean, there's really no way to make that palatable for an audience even though it was egregious. I want you to know that some of the stuff that they're trying to get into kids' libraries these days, shocking stuff. Shocking to me, and I'm an old fart. All right. Finally, I think I'll close out with this. Nearly 70% of Americans oppose allowing males to compete in female sports. Nearly 70% say that athlete-born males should not be allowed to play against natural-born women, according to a recent Gallup poll. In fact, 55% say it's morally wrong to change one's gender. The numbers are notable because it shows that transgenderism has lost ground and opposition has grown since the same question was asked in 2021. Back then, 62% said they opposed transgender women playing alongside and against female athletes. The poll also saw an increase in those who feel it's morally wrong to change one's gender. Transgender sports participation has been a major political flashpoint, and elected officials in conservative-leaning states have enacted laws to ban transgender athletes who were born male from competing against female athletes. I'm telling you, look, if you're gay or if you're transgendered, good on you. It doesn't bother me one whit. I don't understand it. I don't have to understand it. I simply don't care. If you want to be those things, I would say live the life you want to live if you're an adult. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're transgendered. I just don't care. But I do think, as the dad of a one-time student athlete, that I would have been apoplectic if my daughter had been out there as a defender on a soccer team, a high school soccer team, and had to play against a male striker who was, who's playing as a female, though born a male. I mean, I've said, how is that fair? How is that even possibly fair? And I think, if you put yourself in the parent of student athletes, and you put yourself in the position of the female athletes that are going through this, it's just not right. It's not a level playing field, and we really shouldn't allow it. I don't understand why there are so many schools that now are supporting this concept, because it is really antithetical to what sports is all about. And there's no way a biologically born male who decides that they're going to transgender themselves into a female, they're more powerful, they're more muscular, it's just an unfair matchup every step of the way. I mean, look at Riley Gaines and what she's had to go up against as a swimmer. There's nothing about that that's fair. There's nothing about that that's right. 50 minutes now past the hour. One of the hardest things we see as we grow into adulthood is that our parents and loved ones are getting older too. And sometimes the things that were once so easy have become more difficult. They need more and more help as they get older and older. And you're looking around trying to figure out, what can I do? I've got my family. I've got my job. There may be distance involved. You can't be there all the time. Well, this is where assisted family care can help. Many veterans, by the way, are eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. Not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you may well qualify for the benefit for yourself or your spouse. The application process, it's complex, it's daunting, it can be very confusing, but don't worry. Assisted family care, they have years of experience in cutting through the red tape to help veterans receive this benefit if eligible. They will connect you with a responsible, compassionate, compatible helper to assist you with your family's daily needs. Maybe you have a parent with wartime service. Caring for loved ones can be challenging, but assisted family care can help. Assisted family care will be there for you. Visit Assisted Family Care at 615-833-9725. Let's talk about Busy Bee HVAC. Listen, if your air conditioner system is going out or you got a plumbing problem, just call this number, 615-775-7833, and they will buzz over to your hive and fix it. I mean, they're so good and they're so professional. You're gonna love your people who show up at your door. They're gonna fix your problems and get you back up and running as quickly as possible. Now, listen, if you want to become a member of the Beehive Club, as little as $99, you get 3 thorough maintenances on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7, 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling at 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call, or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.